Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fabric Year in Review 2025. We have been doing updates for Build and Ignite with me and Nikola. However, this year things got busy with travel and whatnot, and we figured more the merrier. So we dragged Shabnam in with us. Instead of doing an Ignite update, we would try to do a wrap for 2025. It's been an amazing year for Fabric in 2025, and we'll just kind of talk through what were the big things we saw, what we found interesting, what makes us excited for 2026.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shabnam Watson. I'm a Microsoft Data Platform MVP and a data consultant, and happy to be here with Khaled and Nikola today talking about what came out with Fabric in 2025.
Hey everyone, I'm Nikola. Nice to be here with my friends Shabnam and Khaled. Also data platform MVP for Microsoft Fabric and very passionate about Microsoft data platform products.
Again, my name is Khaled Chaudhry. I'm the principal at Data Characters. I am not an MVP. I just hang out with smart people to look smart. All right. So, with that said, a lot of things came out this year and things like that. Maybe we can cover from different areas and whatnot. Maybe we can talk about what we got new from the integration perspective around shortcuts and things like that. So, what are your thoughts?
So for me, the shortcuts to OneDrive and SharePoint, those were big because a lot of times the users save their Excel files to SharePoint or to OneDrive and they wanted to access them. And before this, you couldn't create a shortcut to them. So you had to stage them in a lake house, for example, to be able to pick them up. So the shortcuts were a big deal for business users.
I think this is something that every single organization have. Can't think of somebody who's not gonna have that situation. And simply in from a different perspective, it's also usually very helpful. So especially around the finance use cases, right? When they want to have a validation file, they want to put in SharePoint that they do not want to give the IT the edit rights because that's part of their control. Now you can do it pretty interestingly with the SharePoint and OneDrive connector. Nicola, your thoughts?
So this one was a big one. I also like shortcut file transformations, which essentially saves you some time and effort in transforming source CSV, Parquet, and JSON files into Delta because Fabric does that automatically now for you. So I would say these two, from the integration point of view, are quite interesting.
Yeah, I think these were pretty interesting and very open to everybody. I think there was a few other ones that are probably impactful for large organization. Like for example, the mirroring we got for Oracle, SAP, DataSphere, and then I think BigQuery as well. So those are impactful for large organization, not for everybody. So I think the winner probably, unfortunately, I think is still the shortcut on SharePoint and OneDrive.
Also, the copy job. Don't forget the copy job because that one is also a super business user friendly. So very, very small learning curve and you can get a lot done with it. Initially, when it came out, I thought it was redundant because there's already a copy activity in the pipelines. But then when I started using it, then I stopped going back to the copy activity. When you're just trying to move something from one location to another, especially like super quickly, you just do it with the copy job.
And now that we talk about data flows got faster and cheaper. So that is very close to my own heart. I won't hide it. I think we got the new model evaluator and I think partition on the compute. What do you think about that, Nicola and Shabla? Both of you like pro code versus me who doesn't like pro code or not good at it.
There are a lot of people who prefer using data flows for different reasons, and I think these improvements will definitely be helpful for these scenarios. So I'm always cheering for any enhancements that improve performance. So I think these two, even though they are not let's say visible to the end user, but still they improve the performance of the data flow Fabric item. So I think it can be a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's especially because you didn't really have to do anything. So if you had the same data flow and you ran it again, it would have run faster and cheaper. So it's a win for the end users.
Maybe you guys want to talk about the materialized lake view, maybe?
Yeah, materials lake views. Uh, First of all, just to clarify the name a little bit, because people may have heard about materialized views in all traditional data warehouses. So these materialized views, materialized lake views, are not the same as materialized views we used to have in the past. So essentially, the idea behind these materialized lake views is to have a possibility to, let's say, mimic dbt behavior inside Fabric. So you can write your entire pipeline logic by using SQL or SQL. So it's a way to create a declarative pipeline. So instead of using graphical user interface and different activities, you define all of these things in a declarative way using SQL. So I think for people who are more familiar with writing code, and especially people who are familiar with the concept of dbt, they may found definitely they will found materialized lake views very useful. Yeah.
On that note, we also have DBT jobs now in Fabric, right?
Yeah, we do. It's, I think, more for a lift and shift approach. With materials lake views, you need to write code on your own. I mean, from scratch.
All right, there you go.
Wow, materials views were not what I thought they were at all.
No, not at all. Yeah, that's really like, yeah.
You write Spark SQL and then you create materialized like view, and then you figure out how often you want to materialize it or something like that, and it does something in the back end. So there's one that I want to talk about that probably is not really integration, but like as we're kind of getting to orchestration and whatnot, we got Fabric CLI in FabCon in Vegas, and then it already went GA by the time we were in Europe, and now it's almost open source. I know this one is pro-code-ish. It is pro-code, but I think it is pretty helpful. Like even for us, we are trying to figure out how to automate standard deployments with CLI versus doing them manually with things and whatnot. But that was pretty interesting to me, even though I'm not a pro-coder.
I haven't played with this one. I'm planning to soon, but I haven't played with it yet.
Yeah, me neither. But generally, my opinion is that whenever you have a code first solution, you have more capabilities to configure certain workloads than from UI. So I guess from what I read and what I heard is that with CLI you have a lot more capabilities to perform and automate tasks than from UI.
I don't know about when we can do a lot more stuff. I think the bigger thing is just like the automation. I think about like you go to like a deployment, right? You're gonna create this medallion standard stuff, and you're gonna create this, and this, right? You go there and click this, click that, click this, click that. Versus
create workspace, create a lake house, all in automated way. Yeah.
It reduces human error.
Now that we talked about integration and a little bit on the automation, Nikola, why don't you talk about warehouses and what you got now?
This like it was a long time pain in Fabric. We didn't have identity columns, and basically we had to do different types of workarounds to mimic identity columns for warehouse. By the end of this year, I'm not sure when it was announced. I think it was somewhere in November or something like that. But we finally got a native support for identity columns, so we don't need these workarounds anymore. The only thing that is still valid is that all of the constraints that exist in warehouse are not enforced. So if you relied in the past on like uniqueness, enforcing uniqueness for your primary key columns, that's still not supported, but at least we have this native support for identity columns. That's the big deal regarding warehouses for me.
All right, now sticking to storage, a lot of stuff happened with Fabric SQL. Shabnam, you want to give us a little bit of highlight of that?
Yes, so Fabric SQL went GA this year. Actually, I think recently, right, in Ignite. That was a big announcement in Ignite. And Fabric SQL DB is really good for app developers, those who are creating, AI applications. It's a transactional system, so it's an OLTP workload compared to the warehouse and lakehouse. So it's meant for different purposes. And it also has a lot of AI capabilities in it. So it supports the vector data type, which allows you to take one of your columns and turn it into a vector data type, which is a data type that you can use for AI purposes. It lets you figure out whether one value, how close it is to another value. So that's the purpose of the vector, super simplify. And then on top of that, you can then do a semantic search. So it's not exactly looking for the exact word. It looks for proximity. And then you can take the results of that search, and then you can take it to Azure AI Foundry, to one of the models, and you can run it against a large language model on top of the semantic search that you did. And then together, this gives you an amazing search capabilities, especially for AI applications. So I love that it was there. And also for people who want to start with AI, if people are reading about LLMs, these models, they want to get started somewhere, but they don't know where to start at. SQLDB, for me, has been a great place to start. You know, the rest of it is familiar. It's just this one piece to add in and then start playing with those models. It's been great.
Now that we got the highlight of the storage, we'll have a full section around AI and whatnot, because obviously that's what's not about AI today. But before that, I think one of the things that Fabric unified data analytics from that perspective, but there is one feature that is going to unify the security that we are pretty excited about. So, Nikola, you want to talk about that a little bit?
OneLake Security, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I think this is probably top 3 on my list in 2025 when it comes to Fabric as a platform. Why? Because since Fabric was introduced, this security model was very, let's say, fragmented. Let's not be too harsh. So every engine has its own security model, right? So you need to have a special security implemented for Spark engine, separate security if you want to enforce on your SQL workloads, Power BI with its own security model, and so on. So the idea behind OneLake Security is very simple. Let's enforce security on the Delta table level inside OneLake, and then regardless of the engine that is going to use this data, these security rules will be automatically applied. So I think the idea is great, and the early signs are promising, but this feature is still in preview, and it still lacks a lot of functionalities, and it still doesn't cover the entire platform. But let's be optimistic, and let's hope that in 2026, this will be a well-rounded story about security model in Fabric.
Yeah, I think this is something I'm looking forward to as well. But like you mentioned, I think it only works lake houses right now. We
And
need
I
the
think
full
mirror
support.
databases or something like that. But yeah, definitely not on all workloads.
On the topic of security, there's another interesting that came out. Shabnam, you want to cover that?
Yes, so workspace level private links. So previously we had tenant level, so you could turn off public access to your Fabric tenant for all of your workspaces. So it was an all or nothing, but now you can make that decision at the workspace. So you can say, this particular workspace, nobody from the public internet can access to it. They have to come through a virtual private network. And this is a requirement for some organizations that you cannot access their resources via public network. And then also a lot of companies had some of their Azure data sources. Let's say they have an Oracle in Azure or they have Databricks in Azure. Those were already behind virtual private networks. So Fabric could not access them. But now that you have the private link, you can make that happen. So you basically go through the virtual private network for everything, which is completely secure. So it's good that now you can do this workspace by workspace. So some of your workspaces you tie down and some of them you don't. So it just added extra flexibility.
And makes it a lot more enterprise friendly when the security side.
Yes. And also, another feature that they've been working on is the outbound security. So previously, the one I just mentioned was for inbound. For the outbound security, also, why it's important is to prevent insider threats or people making a mistake. So you want to send data somewhere, and then by mistake you send it to a storage account, even in your organization, that you didn't mean to. So they're putting controls in there so that you can also prevent those mistakes from happening. So it's there already for a lot of the workloads in Fabric, and it's for the rest of them, it's getting there.
Interesting. I think good update. There's one thing I want to come wrap around that relates to compute. Nikola, you want to talk a little bit about what is this auto scale for Spark job is? I know we have kind of moved from this on-demand billing versus Fabric is more focused around reservation or dedicated capacity billing. What is this auto scale?
Yeah, this is the feature with the ugliest name for first. I mean, not the ugliest, but probably the most misleading name, especially for people who knew about the auto scale feature in Power BI before Fabric. So, but essentially, since you asked, this feature basically allows you to spin up some resources outside of your regular capacity, use these resources in a serverless mode, and then pay for that amount of the resources that you spent on top of your regular capacity. And all these workloads that were performed in that way will not count towards your regular capacity consumption. To illustrate, you say you have like 5 very complex Spark jobs that are transforming, processing a lots of data, and they are taking like 60-70% of your entire capacity, so that other workloads that are happening in parallel may be affected. So with this auto scales billing for Spark, this you can say, I want these 5 Spark jobs to run independently of my regular capacity. I will pay separately for them, but my capacity stay unaffected, untouched. So I think feature itself is great, but I think it's more important if you put it into the context that we now have a possibility to, mix and match serverless and regular capacity workloads. So now it's only Spark, but maybe we will see in next year, we will see other workloads also being available for that type of scaling out from your regular capacity.
I think so. I think serverless is probably an easier name. On-demand capacity. I think apart from the scenario you mentioned, right, when it eats 70% of it, but sometimes it actually eats more than 70%. It eats like 300%. And I had F64. Now for that just one few of those jobs, I had to go buy F256. Now I don't need to. For only the time, I don't have to scale it up or down the capacity. I can just make those work serverless, I guess, from that perspective, that builds on its
You
own.
pay, let's say they are running for 2 hours, you will be charged for 2 hours of that work. You will pay for 2 hours on top of that, but your capacity, as you said, it stays on the same with the same size, and all the other workloads happening over there will not be affected, which is, in my opinion, this is a great feature, and I would love to see it also available for other workloads. Like maybe you don't use Spark, maybe you use SQL for processing your data. So if you have complex store procedure that runs or something like that, or super complex Power BI semantic model that needs to be refreshed, I would be happy to see this on a more granular level and across all workloads. So I can pick really like most expensive items, and these items then run in serverless mode. I've been charged separately for them, and that's it. Yeah.
That's very good. Uh, just to wrap this up before we jump into I think one of the things that was pretty important now, especially with Fabric in more and more enterprise use cases, like as of September, I believe we have every single thing in Fabric now CI/CD compliant with the variable library and things like that, which makes it pretty good for us to make sure that we figure out who changed the code. And this is area that I use a little bit. We're doing some implementation, but I would love to hear your thoughts.
So CI/CD in general is super important because you have a history of who has changed the code. So you have version control. You can, if you make a mistake, you can go back. There are some things that you can do, for example, in Power BI Desktop that you cannot hit Control Z and recover from. So unless you have saved a copy, you cannot go back. But with version control, if that item is in a Git repository, you can go back, right? So that's a continuous integration part of it. And then you have the second part. You have the continuous delivery or deployment part of it. Is it deployment? Continuous deployment. So you have the second part of it, you have the continuous delivery part of it, and that with that part, you're automating, moving your items from one environment to another. So all of this is automated, and you're not depending on humans to make mistakes. So overall, it's a huge requirement again for bigger projects. With some of the organizations also have. They have mandates or they have requirements again that humans should not touch production, or developers are supposed to put touch production. Permissions are very tied down, so it becomes super important to have CI/CD pipelines.
Now, with talks about humans and machine, let's jump into AI and the most covered topic from November and whatnot from the Ignite. Shabnam, what's Fabric IQ?
So it's I like Fabric IQ. It adds a layer over either your lakehouse or a Power BI model if you've already have it, to make it easier to understand for AI applications. So that's the easiest way I can explain this. So you create something that's called an ontology, either directly on top of your lakehouse, or if you have a Power BI semantic model on top of it, and you're basically you're giving more context for your model so that an AI application or an AI engine can understand it and then answer questions from your end user. So that's the super high level definition of it. And of course, it's not just one item. So an ontology is actually a Fabric item that you create, and with it, you can interact with the agents, which I know, Khaled, that's something you're passionate about.
I think that's a really good way to look at it, Shabnam. I think that's how I'm looking at it as well. I think Fabric IQ is a collection of different Fabric items that focuses the understanding of your data for the LLMs, right? And we got a few different things. I think you talked about ontology. I think that's a pretty big deal because, like, as we're building agents, so think about you want to build a sales agent, finance agent, and all this stuff. I have to give it instruction about how the business unit, how the company, how the departments are structured. And we do that every single time, how the workflows and whatnot. I think ontology takes learning from the digital twin concept and stuff like that. It allows us to give that layer, business definition layer, so that we can do it once and leverage it across different things. So I've not tested it yet, but obviously it just came out. This is something that we're looking forward to as we get more into it. And as you mentioned, data agents are pretty interesting, right? So I come from finance in my old days, and I would be trying to take a vacation or wherever I am, or at 9 p.m. I'll get a text. It's like, hey, can you give me the sales for this so and so for last 6 months adjusted for this? I was like, in the old days, it's like just filter the Excel pivot table, or even when I actually got to Power BI, I'd be like, just it's in the report, just go to the filter, right? But C-suites and leadership are not really great at that. But again, when we design dashboards, they are not always exactly customized to answer every single question. For us who build it, we know that, okay, click on this, click on that, and we can do it, versus what Copilot chat with your data and the data agents do, that not so value added work of just giving that part what the business needs on request. I think that's an amazing solution from that we get with data agents and Copilot chat with your data and whatnot. So I think with ontology and whatnot, it allows us to kind of take it to the next step. And they highlight Power BI semantic model as one of the core pieces of um, Fabric IQ, right? Which is no surprise. I mean, it has, like, from a AI perspective, it has context, it has the relationship and everything built in. And guess what? It's blazing fast compared to a SQL query, right? So I think that's all exciting stuff. There is one more piece that's in there. I believe it's called operations agents, right? From my understanding is that's when we try to automate or trigger actions from the information and whatnot. Uh, the way I kind of look at it, I think I don't know if it's still called activator or not. We have a thing, used to have a thing called activator, which was trigger based. I think it's probably the next generation of that instead of me writing logic, probably can trigger based on some natural language instructions. When this happens, do that. But again, that's all interesting stuff that I'm looking forward to coming out. Again, these are fresh off the oven, right? Just came out in November, and looking forward to it. Any thoughts on that, Nikola?
Oh yeah, not that deep into AI stuff, to be honest. So yeah, from what I read about Fabric IQ, it's, as per my understanding, is something like building a conceptual model over your semantic model, semantic layer, and providing more context of how different entities are connected between themselves. So essentially, what I understood is that instead of having something like I don't know, without ontology, we have something like column A equals X in ontology that translates to customer bought an expired product or something like that. So it has a meaning, and I would say the biggest beneficiary of this feature will be AI workloads, agents, and so on. Yeah.
All right. With that, I think we got most of it covered. As I look back on 2025, this is Fabric's GA's second year birthday, right? It went GA and whatnot. And on that topic, I think the biggest thing for me for Fabric in 2025 is the amount of feature that went GA, right? As people are getting more and more into production, what gives us more peace of mind and comfort is that all these features, the Microsoft team is doing amazing work in terms of giving us new features, but the features that came out before are now entering general availability as they continue to improve them at the same time. Now let's talk about there's one thing that went away. We got a lot of features, but there's one feature that went away, and that made everybody happy.
So I think most people are happy that the default Power BI model that you would get with every Fabric item that you created went away. So before, if you created a lake house, a warehouse, and even I think Fabric SQL DB, you would get automatically a default semantic Power BI model, which was great for quick test or quick POC. But after a while, it would get quite annoying because you would get one for every single item that you created. And most people didn't use it. So finally, it's gone. It's no longer there. And I think a lot of people are happy about it.
See, sometimes people gets happy when a feature gets taken away.
Yes.
But again, maybe like from a wrap perspective, just your in general thoughts about 2025 and whatnot.
Yeah, it was a busy year, hectic year for Microsoft Fabric, which is expected because it's a very new product, still very much work in progress. So we had a lot of announcements, GAs, public previews, and so on, fixing bugs and stuff like that. So I expect in 2026 probably the same pace of development, and then after that probably we will go into let's say a more stable in more stable direction like we had with Power BI. I remember when Power BI just became a thing in first few years, we had tons of announcements with every monthly update. Similar happens now in Fabric, but I believe like I said, in 2026 we will probably see the similar pace as in 2025, and there were a lot of things. And my final message is: you don't need to know all of them. You don't need to master all of them. Definitely, but yeah, it's good to know how the platform develops and understand as much as you can, at least from high level point of view.
Yeah, definitely. We had a lot of features that came out in 2025 or they were announced. They became not, they weren't GA, but they were just announced in preview, public preview. And I expect 2026 to continue same way as Nikola said. There's going to be a ton of changes coming, advancements coming. And as Nikola said, I don't think that you need to know every single feature that comes out, because it can get super overwhelming or stressful that features are coming out and you don't understand all of them. One thing you have to remember is that Fabric has so many parts to it, and you don't need to use all of the parts for every single project to be successful. So focus on the couple of items that you're working with to be able to stay up to date with all the announcements that are coming out.
Great wrap. I think as we wrap this 2025, we're recording this the day after Christmas. And from my perspective, I would agree with Nikola and Shabnam. 2025 was a busy year. I think 2026 is going to continue to be busy. Just my personal thoughts is that in 2024, people are asking, what is Microsoft Fabric? And this year, people are asking, why Microsoft Fabric? And I think at the pace of innovation and adoption that Microsoft Fabric is facing, 2026 is going to be the year of inflection where people are going to ask, why not Microsoft Fabric? So we are pretty excited as the year comes in 2026 and create value with Microsoft Fabric. And if you want to stay up to date, do follow Nikola and Shabnam, and they cover a lot of things that are technical, goes deep into it, and help from that perspective. And wishing you all a happy new year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.